All right, in this video, I'm gonna take you along with me on one of my most amazing backcountry ski trips I've ever done. So this trip was just great for that. I'm gonna walk through some of the lessons learned I had when I was out there in the backcountry skiing and trying to take photos as it was snowing, as it was literally face shot type conditions. Try and adjust my board. Yeah! Woohoo! The goal of it is basically I want to progress my photography and videography skills so that in the future I'm able to work with brands, work with patrons, and just individuals to capture these amazing moments in the backcountry. The great thing about this trip is that I did take it with Island Alpine Guides, with a guide I've gone with before. So I trust him a lot, and he can trust me. He knows my skiing ability to a point too. So he's not gonna send me into something he's not comfortable with me taking that on. And they know their stuff, and they've been to those areas and they know the ridges and where the terrain traps are and things like that. So it's really great to be able to go with a guide. So we found this nice little pocket. We dug a tiny little pit and we saw how the snow conditions were, and they were actually holding up really well in that area. So I was able to sneak down completely visible to the crew and get down to a spot where I could see a nice frame for the photo. And at that point I was comfortable that I was out of the way if something did slide. And I'm taking photos uphill where these guys are coming down. The kit I used was the A7 III, which I have. It's a really great little full frame camera, amazing for video. It's what I'm shooting on right here. Yeah, I love the camera. The lens I used was an 18-105 Sony G Master f4. When I'm shooting in like snowy conditions and things like that, where there's a lot of moisture, I want a lens that's completely sealed inside. You can get, I have other lenses like the Tamrons that have like an external scope that goes in and out as you zoom. I wanted that kind of internal zooming. So this lens I find is just an absolute workhorse for me, and I love it. I've used it on my crop sensor A6500, and I've also loved it on my full frame, so it adapts to both. People that really take photos in these situations are probably thinking right now is you need a big lens. You need a 70-200. And I agree. I would love to have that lens. It would absolutely be a dream, and it's next on my list for when I have the budget for it. I will use my money to get that 70-200 2.8 perfect sports lens. But I deal with what I have now, and that's the lens I chose to bring out. What I love about that lens is it's compact, it's small, it doesn't take up a lot of room in my pack. You can get great photos. It snaps really quick with the autofocus, being a Sony G Master lens. The one lesson I had in this, and the thing I had to deal with the one shot I was doing, the main shot I had for the group of 3 we had out there, that it was snowing, and that snow interferes with the autofocus, so I had to use manual focus. I shot at 1/500, which is good enough. I knew these guys weren't going to be going super fast. I wanted to keep my ISO low, but I had kind of a zone I wanted to get really sharp, crisp images, and I got that. So for the first few shots, I kind of set my manual focus to basically look at a tree that was right beside, or a powder pillow that was right beside where I knew they were going to be. And that worked really well. The problem was, as they came down, I wasn't able to get super sharp images all the way through like I could if it was a sunny day and I didn't have to manually focus. And then throughout the rest of the day, I was just trying to capture different scenes and then show the feeling of the day. So you're doing some B-roll, you're getting some up shots as they're climbing up. You find a nice frame between some trees and snap a shot there. So I caught a couple of those, which were really good. I was happy with those. It was quick. It kind of came up on a frame that I wanted, and they were almost there. So I just hustled to get my camera out, and they were going by, and most of them were sharp, but I was kind of relying on autofocus, which isn't great. Especially when you're framing a shot, it likes to since the autofocus has hundreds of points all the way to the edge, it doesn't know exactly what you're looking for, and the person moving isn't moving that quickly. So it doesn't see them as like the main focus. It sees like these bushes right beside you is probably the main focus. So I was always trying to like get that image to focus on the patron. And there's settings you can have. You can have zone settings, which I should have had it on, but again, I just pulled it out. It's better to get a shot and and deal with it in post as best you can than miss the entire shot because you're setting up your camera. So that was kind of a lesson learned, is now that I know what an up-track shot would be, I would set the focus on while I'm putting my skins on at the bottom, so I'd have a zone or even like a spot. So yeah, so I got the deep POW, face shot POW shots, which were really good. The sharpest images were a little further away than I'd like. I didn't like cropping that far into the image in post, but the shots turned out great. So since the camera doesn't have like a 2.8 or a 1.4 or a 1.8 aperture, what I tend to do, and what worked really well in these shots, is I stood further back. So I'm coming up the skin track last, and I stood way back. And since I have an 18-105 on the lens, I have some distance. It's not the 200, but 105 is not bad. So you stay back far enough and you can find a nice range in the middle and a nice frame of the guys up ahead, and you can pick which person you want to have in the frame, and that background is going to be super nice and blurry, and the other patrons are going to be super nice and blurry too, so it really gives that kind of focus on what you want. As far as like carrying my camera, typically use just my, I'll grab it here. So typically when I go touring, I just use the Deuter backpack here. I've had this for years, the Freerider Pro 30 liter, and it works really well. I get all my avalanche gear and stuff just in the front pocket here, and then in the back pockets where I'll have my snacks and everything, the big pocket, and all my snacks and my skins in here. My snacks are just going to be in a Ziploc bag, and the nice thing about a Ziploc bag is I can put that down on the bottom, fill it with air, and it kind of acts like a little cushion. The other thing with the camera that I really find when I go into the backcountry is condensation and moisture is really tricky with these. For one, you are trekking uphill and moving at a pretty good pace, and it's basically like a pretty good hike. Like you're going pretty hard and you're lifting pretty heavy skis. Ideally you're sliding them, but you lift them a little bit, and you get tired and sweaty, and as you sweat, that heat just gets in the backpack, and then you pull out that camera and it's out in the cold now. So if you go from the heat of the backpack to the cold too many times, it starts to have that condensation on the lens. It has to have that, or starts to have that condensation on the touchscreen on the back. So you want to avoid taking out the camera as much as possible. So I did that first shot at the beginning in the deep powder, and then after that, I really minimized the amount of times I took out that camera, just to minimize the condensation and moisture that was building up on it. When I put the camera into the bag, the best thing I found, and it sounds silly, if people have better ideas, put them down below, but this works every time for me. I just get a big baggy soft cotton t-shirt, like a workout t-shirt, and I wrap up the camera in it. I put the lens cap on, but yeah, I wrap that t-shirt around it and shove it in to the backpack, and it seems to provide enough padding, and any moisture that gets in gets absorbed by that t-shirt, not by the camera, and then any moisture that's on the camera will also just get picked up by that t-shirt as well a little bit. And it's been great. Every time there's a little snow on the camera or something, because things happen, I wrap it in that t-shirt, put in the bag. By the time I'm done the skin track up, it's basically dry again and works really well. And that's kind of the day. It was challenging. It was challenging conditions. The guide was absolutely incredible. The patrons were super cool, and it was a ton of fun.